So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jam through, and I'm going to give you some tips. I'm not going to dig into the marketing as much as I would normally, but I'm just going to rapid fire give you some design ideas. Design is critical, and it's something that almost no one pays any attention to. Design. And design is everything from the design of your logo, the design of the look of your website, the design of your product, the design of the packaging. Who here has purchased an iPod? Okay? You remember when you bought it and you opened it up and you almost thought the packaging itself was a work of art? You know what I mean? Who has some piece of Apple packaging in some closet in their house kept? Right? Isn't that amazing? That's design. I heard Steve Jobs, actually I got to meet Steve Jobs. One of my hobbies is going and trying to meet and talk to billionaires and ask one question of them. And I've been doing that for a few years now, and it's fascinating. You know, you get one answer from someone like that, and it, you know, can give a lot of insight. But anyway, I saw Steve Jobs talk at a conference recently, earlier this year, just a few months ago, and he said, we think of Apple as a software company. And I said, whoa, like I gotta readjust my brain. And then he quoted some other guy, and he said, this other guy says, if you love software, you make your own hardware. So we view the iPod as a wonderful piece of software wrapped in beautiful hardware. Right? And if you, once you understand that, then you go into the Apple store and you look at an Apple computer, you realize that these guys really get it. And their designs are the best. They're just simply the best. So design is that, it's almost like that place where your company and your products and your marketing interface with the customer. That's where design lives. Does that make sense? That space where your customers meet your marketing, your products, and your services. That's where design lives. A term that's used a lot lately is usability. Usability has been mentioned a lot on the web. And what does usability mean? It means how easy and intuitive is it to use something. And most design, just about everywhere, is kind of an afterthought. And there's an old saying in design. They say, form follows function. It's kind of the most popular saying in design and architecture. Form follows function. Any guesses about why it's said so often? Because it has alliteration at the beginning. Form follows function, because it's memorable. That's why the phrase is used and remembered. Remember what we learned about alliteration and similar sounds? Now, it also just so happens that it's a great concept. Form follows function. So the thing follows the other thing. So the thing that leads is the function. You start with the function, and then you design the thing to facilitate the function. So let's just rock and roll here. John Collins. Uncap Inc. Unsecured capital consultants ready to get the financing your company needs to grow and prosper without having to show past tax returns or plans to bankers who really don't understand your business anyway. Then get your business profile now. Now let me ask you a question. When you first look at this, what's the first thing that you look at? The pen. Does that have anything to do with that message that I just read? I mean, is that practically related in any way to what you are offering? No. Okay. I mean, I guess you want them to sign on the dotted line, huh? So maybe it's maybe there's some subliminal marketing and I just don't get it, huh? So when I'm looking at designs, the first thing that I want to see, first thing I'm looking for, is what's called a dominant visual element. The dominant visual element. And that's just big fancy words for the first thing a person looks at when they get there. And what I recommend you do whenever you're designing something, a website, a marketing piece, I don't care what it is, stand far enough back from your computer screen that you look at it and you say, okay, where does my eye go first? And then ask yourself, is that what I want them to see first? As far as I'm concerned, if this was my website, the first thing I'd want them to see is the message. I wouldn't want them to see the pen. So I'd probably be using something that looked a little more like that says, is your water killing you? See, my eye knows where to go first on that one. It's actually not a bad design. It's designed with eye gravity, reading gravity in mind. Pretty good design. So where do you want your prospect's eye to go first? Make that the dominant visual element. Now there's a hierarchy of visual elements that we're looking at here. Where does your eye go second after you look at the pen? The little white box? Where? Which one? Kind of over on the left, the blue box with the little white thing in it? Okay, right. That's the second, that's like the secondary visual element. If you created a hierarchy, first my eye goes to the pen, then I look at the card. Now, I've looked at the pen, I've looked at the card. Do I know what's going on yet? Do I know what's happening here, or what the purpose of this site is? No. Now, there are several things that you could probably do to take this to the next level. Let me call your attention to one more of them. In design, a very important concept is contrast. Contrast. And the reason why contrast is important is that part of the visual system is that things that contrast against each other are more easily seen and discerned. Can you put up, I don't know, like one of our altitude, your people, your marketing, your systems logos real quick? Okay, so look at that logo. Now, you know, I think it's pretty and it's attractive and so forth, but it's really darn easy to understand what's going on there. It's symbolic. My eye knows where to go first. Boom, it's the outline with the guy holding the wheels, and then it says your systems. Oh, I get it, quick. Now, if we took the guy, and instead of having him be black against a white background, instead we made him a light yellow against the white background, you'd look at this, and you'd have to look for a while before you'd figure out what it is. You'd have to kind of study it to make sense of it. In this format, because the contrast is strong, you instantly pick it out. So that black on white, or the yellow on the black, those are very high contrast color combinations. And so they're easily discernible. The lines, the boundaries are easy to make out for the eye. So then, where does your eye go third? The logo up at the top? Yeah, probably the logo. That's probably the fourth most dominant. So I look at the pen, then I look at the little card, and then I look up at the thing that says Uncap Inc. What's the most intuitive conclusion to come to about what kind of company this is? Right, some kind of pen company. Right, that makes the most sense. Uncap Inc. Pen doesn't have a cap on it, and I mean, you say it's funny, but you with me? And I'm not trying to be cute here, but as a prospect who's got all of my attention taken all the time by all these things that are trying to get my attention and distract me, any probability that I'm going to be confused is something you want to eliminate, because if I feel confused, see, now when I read ready and I say to get financing for my company, I'm like, you know what, I was wrong. See, my intuitive guess about what this company was about was wrong. I'm already wrong before I know what you do. Right? That is kind of powerful. A lot of companies, when they design ads, they do things like take the ad, they'll put it in a magazine, and they'll turn the ad sideways. So you have to turn the magazine landscape. Most people don't even see the ad when it's turned that way. You think you're being cute. People, they see that page, and because the words are oriented in a non-standard way, they just flip right by. Confusion is not your friend here. So you want to avoid stuff like that. And then you've got a headline in kind of a mustard yellow color against white, which is very low contrast, hard to read, hard to deal with. All right, where do your eyes go first here? Okay, the woman standing there with the chair. Where do they go second? Okay, the closer. Where do they go third? Yell it out. Where do they go third? The box right under the closer. And then where do they go? Hot seat. And then what? Lower right-hand picture. So, okay, so I start in the middle, then I go over to the left and I go down, and then I come over down to the bottom to the right, and then I go over to the right a little bit further. It's a circular format. Is that naturally the way that people read? Is that the way we've been trained to read? No, it violates, it makes us start in the middle and then move back over to the left. The way the eye wants to start is it wants to start at the top or in the upper left, and then move across the page and down. Or if there are columns, that's fine too, one column, next column. But the eye likes to move left to right. Where are you at, Heather? I know you're in here. I knew you were here. You got your tough skin on? You really got your tough skin on? I'm just messing with you. Okay. So one of my thoughts is, when I look at this, and I'm going to step a little bit outside of design here and talk to a couple of other things. If I see a woman standing next to a chair, and then the next thing I see says, the closer. Did you say the closer? Well, is it possible that I might be confused when I see that word because I don't know what that means? So one of the questions you want to ask yourself is not only is it crystal clear where my eye should start, where it should go next, and where it should go next, but is it crystal clear what the hell it is? What does it mean? I've looked at the first two dominant visual elements, and again, there is probably at least a 50% probability, and I'll bet you more than 50% of the people read that as the closer, that I could be confused. You've already risked confusing and disorienting, because they have to read backwards, a large percentage of your audience. And then it says, type your name and primary email to gain access to the hidden techniques and success and secrets of the nation's top multimillionaire speakers now. I don't know about you, but those three things don't connect for me. They don't seamlessly fit together, and I go, oh, I see what the benefit is to me to do this. You with me? They don't link together. It just isn't a cohesive thing. I don't know where to start. I don't know what it means. Here we go. Mike, where you at? How you feeling, Mike? You need your self-esteem lowered just a little bit? I offer that service in a public forum for only $10,000. Okay, so here we got a picture of Mike sitting in a chair with some water. Looks like he's sitting next to his hot tub, but trying to make it look like a pool. And it says, here's the headline. How many other thousands of people want to discover the truth why more than 90% of network marketers fail, and how you can secretly use this information to explode your MLM business? Are you finally sick and tired of losing your downline? From the desk of Mike Lewitz, Friday, October 5th, subject MLM training. Now, interestingly enough, as unfancy as this is probably the strongest by far design that we've looked at so far, even though it's not beautiful. Where does the eye start? Where does it go second? And where does it go after that? Picture, headline, subheadline, right into the copy. It's designed with a customer in mind. I find it interesting that you asked a question and there's no question mark, and you've got a close quote and no open quote, and about a million other little tiny details that would drive someone like me crazy, but you're doing a pretty good job. I also like the way you emphasized a word by unbolding it. You've done some fascinating things here. But you're moving down the right path. We need to work with you on your copy. Okay, who else wants to discover how to stop your parrot from biting you? Where does the eye go first? Picture. Where does it go second? Huh? Headline? Subhead? Then into the little box on the right? Okay, cool. Pictures almost always have captions. That's the way we are trained to work. And David Ogilvy says, and you'd have to test on your website, but David Ogilvy says, don't put pictures below headlines. Put the picture over the headline like they do in the newspaper. You with me? The caption, that kind of thing. But this is a pretty darn good design overall here. What could you do to make this design stronger? So let me give you a couple of more tips. Let's go back here and we can start here. This design, to me, looks a little janky. It looks like all the elements were just kind of thrown on the page, and you hit the bold, underline, italics, center, every formatting button that you had in Microsoft Word. And if you had another one, like put a starburst around this text, you would have pressed that one too. You hit them all. Which, by the way, is the ultimate way to look like an amateur. Okay? Stay away from those buttons. If instead this headline were hard left aligned, no bold, no italics, no underline, and it was put in real quotes, and it were spaced correctly instead of all that extra space in there, it would look a lot stronger. Now, notice where the picture is. Also just placed arbitrarily. What was he trying to do with the picture? He was trying to center it in the space that was available. Centering, another very amateurish thing to do. Good designs are not centered. If he would have taken the picture and placed it hard left, aligned with that nice edge of text that he has below, and then up at the top of the page, and then maybe made it a little bit bigger, it would have aligned. So write down alignment. Alignment is a key to design. If you would have moved this picture over to the left and up to the top, and then made it a little bit bigger, it would have cohesively drawn the page together. And it would have looked less janky and less amateurish. Next, if you would have taken your headline, aligned it left hard up against that picture, squished it together, evened it out, and maybe even put it in a serifed font. This is a sans serif font. Serifs are those little tails on the letters, like a newspaper would usually have. Use that and put it in real quotes, and it'll look like a newspaper headline. And what happens when we see something that's laid out the way it would have been laid out in a magazine or in a newspaper? What happens? It has instantaneous credibility. Why? Because that's what we've been programmed with as being credible. 12, 13, 14 years ago when I started getting into direct response marketing, I always kept a good little swipe file of any great design that I saw. And I would always go to newspapers, magazines. If you really want to learn great design, read USA Today, Cosmopolitan magazine, read the biggies, read the big publishing magazines. Men's Health has some great designs. Great editorial designs that are laid out by experts, the pros, the best. Model those. And stay away from all those formatting buttons. Okay, so we learned about dominant visual element and creating a visual hierarchy. We learned about contrast. We learned about the direction that the eye goes, reading gravity, and now we've learned about alignment. So write this down as a rule of thumb. When you start with 2 to 3 colors, 2 to 3 alignments, 2 typefaces max. And if you're going to use 2 different ones, try to use one that's a serif and one's a sans serif, so they have a really nice contrast against each other. Try to have a couple of alignment points on the page that you align everything to. So here, you might have the hard left alignment, and then you might have another one in the middle, and you'd align both of them to the left and make nice lines. Now also here, you know, the visual hierarchy, it's hard to figure out where I'm supposed to go or what to do. If you want to have the video, if the video is it, then you probably want to have, I mean, I could envision having something where the first thing I see is the box with the video, and above it, it says, watch this 3-minute video to learn how to get your parrot to stop biting you. And then maybe there's a 1 next to it. And then 2, it might say, I don't know what your offer is here, but to get a free custom 12-page report on how to train your parrot tricks and how to do it this and that and the other, and click the box you want, click here. Maybe it's 2 components. Does that make sense? Boom. 1, watch this video to learn this thing, and then right next to it to the right, 2, and then opt in here to get this thing. Click this box. See how that could be simpler? So any elemental thing you're going to do, typefaces, alignments, colors, contrasts, any of that stuff, start with 2, typefaces, whatever, styles. Start with 2, and just work from there. Don't do too many more complex things. Now, if, I mean, there's a theory in direct response marketing that ugly works. And sometimes it does. Sometimes ugly works better. But you've got to test. And I would say that confusing isn't that good. Ugly but easy to understand is a great idea. But ugly and confusing and a little bit weird, and I don't really know what to do, isn't that good. Bill. How you doing, Bill? So what do we have? And by the way, thank you very much for coming. I'm glad you're here, Bill. Dominant visual element. Where's the first place your eye goes? That big blue thing up at the top, where beautiful dreams become reality. Where does it go next? Well, that's the problem, because I got about 4 different things that are competing for my attention second. My eye doesn't know where to go. I don't know whether to go to the top, to the upper right, upper left, lower right. The hierarchy just isn't there. There isn't something that's the clear winner, then the secondary thing, and then where do I go after that? And I'll throw in a little bit of extra stuff here, a couple of side comments, because I just can't keep my mouth shut. Yell out, what's the thing that customers want most when they come to you? What's the one thing that they're usually looking for? Yell it out. What part of their appearance? What's the number one? They want to improve their breast appearance? What's the second? Body contouring appearance. And what's the third? Face. What percentage of your business makes up those 3?
Probably 40, 20.
So that's all your business? Basically. That's essentially, it's 80 or 90% of it, right? Okay, essentially, all right. If I were in your situation and I had a website and this was a primary place I was getting traffic and, you know, increasing the conversion could be good, I'd probably start with those 3 things. And I'd want that dominant visual element to be one of each of those 3. And I'd probably want a before and after picture starting with 1, breast, 2, body contouring, and 3, face. And I'd take that where beautiful dreams become reality, because that's a bunch of hyperbole that nobody cares about and it doesn't mean anything anyway. And I'd suck that right out of there, and I'd take that big top place, and I'd have before, after, before, after, before, after, beautiful pictures, of course, right? And underneath a little quote from the person, like the little testimonial. And I want to see the result I am looking for as fast as I can. And then what I'd do is I'd strip out all of this other stuff that's a confusing thing. I don't know what it is. What's the purpose of the website? What do you want them to do after they see this page? What specific action step would you like them to take? Enter the information on the right to submit an inquiry or make a phone call. So we've already hit a challenge because you don't know what you want them to do. You want them to do one thing or another thing. Where does most of the business come from? The inquiry or the phone call? Which one? The phone call? What percentage come from the phone call? Just make it up. What do you think? Make it up. 60% come from the phone call. Okay. And, I don't know, you want to test maybe having both options there and so forth, but if 60% come from the phone call with a website that's hard to figure out, what I might do, and you know what, we just go up to the mic, just to make it easier for everybody here to kind of hear what you're saying. We're going to get in and almost do a little laser business coaching at the same time so you can see how the design fits into the overall picture. You good with this?
Sure.
Okay, good. So when someone calls on the phone, what happens?
They're greeted by a receptionist.
Not a salesperson?
Pardon me?
Not a salesperson?
No.
Oh, I probably can make you a lot of money, I think. What's your conversion, do you think, from call to sale?
Well, we have two conversions, call to booking a consultation, and then consultation to booking a procedure.
Okay, well, that's good then. All right. What percent book a consultation? I just have to know.
I would
Can't
say
help myself.
probably about 40% of phone calls to consultation and about 60% consultation to surgery.
And just to make up a number, what kind of profit is a successful deal worth, surgery?
Oh, I would say the average surgery probably $6,000.
Profit?
No, it's probably about 4,000 if you just count profit.
Okay, 4,000 profit. Good. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity here. One of the things you might want to do is you might want to take what would be an ideal phone call. I'm getting way off track here, but I just can't help myself because I see money waiting to be made here. But you might want to take the telephone call when they call that the receptionist tries to book the consultation and sit down yourself and spend a day and say, what would I say to this person if I was on the telephone? You might even take a bunch of those calls, get the gist of what it is, and then sit down in front of a little pocket camera and say, hi, it's Bill Eschbaugh. I'm the founder of South Florida Plastic Surgery, and I want to just talk to you a little bit about how to improve, how to get, I want to teach you the questions to ask when you're choosing a plastic surgeon to get breast surgery, body contouring or face surgery. Here are a couple of things to do. Ask this question, avoid these kinds of things. By the way, if you're interested in getting these things, what I'd love to do is give you a no commitment consultation, free, my compliments. I'd really like to meet you and talk to you. I don't know if we can help your needs. I don't know if we're the right company for you, but I would really like to have the opportunity to talk to you. And by the way, when you come in for your consultation, I'll give you a copy of this free report that has the 13 questions to ask. If you'd like to book a complimentary consultation, please call this phone number just to get them so when they call, they're calling and saying, hi, can I book the consultation? Not, hi, and the receptionist is like, got a hot dog in one hand and like, hello? Yeah, I don't think he's got any appointments available. $4,000, bye. And I don't think that's what happens, but if you're only converting 40%, I don't know. So, okay, back to design. Hopefully you can take that and make some money with it. What I would do is ask myself, what would be perceived at this point? They're sitting in front of their computer, right? They can't open the computer up and stick their face in there and then pull it out and have it be fixed. They can only get so much done in front of the computer. What would the customer who's gotten to this website, what would be an ideal thing for them to get as a result of getting there? What do you think they want from the site? What do you think they want?
They want to know if the plastic surgery could help them or be right for them.
Right. What else?
Is it affordable? Can they get it financed?
There's more, actually. They want to know how it works. They don't know a damn thing about plastic surgery, really. No matter how much you think they know.
Well, they're pretty sophisticated. They're by the time
You haven't been to Walmart yet, have you? No. Yeah.
But I've noticed over the past few years, people do come with a higher level of sophistication than.
I'm sure they do. I'm just giving you a hard time. But they still want education.
Sure.
I know that they
Absolutely.
do. All right? Anyone that is thinking about having a knife put to them for vanity has issues and has insecurities, fears. They don't want it screwed up. I mean, what's probably the biggest fear that someone going to a plastic surgeon has?
Probably the biggest fear would be they have, like a horror story outcome, like they would be scarred or regret having it done.
I mean, you might want to test a before and after picture that's a disaster at the top. You with me? And say, here's a client that came to me after going to another discount plastic surgeon. You with me?
Yes, and actually I was thinking about that earlier in the week. That's going to be for one of my niche markets I'm going to create, the revisional plastic surgery.
Nice.
That I've learned from this course.
And, again, remember, a new perspective.
Right.
And then say, and then here's what I did to fix what the other person screwed up, and it cost them $9,700 plus the $4,600 they paid over here. And if they would have just come to me originally, it would have cost them even less than their original one, and they would have had it done right. And by the way, let me tell you what you need to know about plastic surgery. And I'm going to just go with they're pretty sophisticated. All right? I'm going to go down that line. I might say, if you're like me, you've probably done a lot of research on plastic surgery. In fact, you've probably been hunting around the internet and getting tips. Well, a lot of plastic surgery businesses try to make it sound easy and cheap and fun, and they gloss over a lot of the details. Let me teach you about some of the things that they are unwilling to teach you about, and then give them one tip, and then maybe say, by the way, I've created this free report, and I'd love to give you a copy. Enter your name and email, and I'll send it to you. Or have the video where you come on and you say, hi, it's Bill, and let me tell you a little bit about this whole thing, and blah, 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 and I'd like to do a free consultation with you. And by the way, if you're not interested in a free consultation, that's fine too. But it's so important that you know the right questions to ask so you avoid horror stories like these. Boom, boom, boom. Please call my office and just ask for a copy of the report, and I'd be glad to send it out. Does that make a little bit
Love it.
more sense? Okay. Because I think that this kind of stuff, while beautiful, it's just a disconnect from what's all the irrational stuff going on in their heads, and it's a disconnect design-wise, and it's, you know what I mean? The whole thing. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for playing.